A strong Arctic cold front will send temperatures tumbling late this week into this weekend. Who could see their first frost and freeze of the year across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast? And we're talking about the tropics gaining steam yet again as we get towards the middle of October. Welcome back, everyone. Good Monday morning out there to you. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. If you guys have not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel or hit the notification bell to get all of the notifications for these videos, definitely hit both down below to get all of my daily weather forecast updates here on this channel. Looking first across the area here, across much of North America, we got a lot of above normal temperatures here all across the Canadian provinces, across the northern and northwestern United States. But some big changes are on the way as we get towards late this week and into next weekend. So let's show you that here. We got the above normal temperatures 10 to even 20 degrees above normal across much of Ontario, Quebec, all the way back here into western portions of Canada, even Alaska as well, as we head into this afternoon. Now, as we go into the middle of the week on Wednesday, October 5th here in the afternoon, we have a strong cold front starting to take shape across southern and southeastern Canada. That will send temperatures tumbling first across these areas here into places like Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, Canada, while areas in western Canada and places like British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan will remain well above normal. Look at Alaska, guys. We could be talking about 25 degrees above normal for places like Alaska and western Canada middle of this week. But as we get towards late this week, we got a strong cold front sending temperatures tumbling across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and much of the Ohio Valley, the Northeast as well. You can see these blue anomalies showing up across mainly the upper Great Lakes. That is about 10 to 15 degrees below normal here for this time of year. And granted, it is early October, so again, 10 to 15 degrees below normal is actually pretty significant. So we'll take a look at that here. So starting today, we have temperatures fairly seasonable across most of the country, slightly above normal across the Great Plains there from Nebraska all the way south to Texas, averaging around the middle 80s. But you can see some cooler weather residing across the Northeast and the Great Lakes where we see some 50s, some lower 60s there, middle 60s across the Chicago lakefront up there toward Milwaukee, lower 70s up there into Green Bay, middle 70s today across portions of the Twin Cities and Minnesota. But as we get toward the middle of this week, you can start to see hints of some cooler temperatures diving south into the upper Great Lakes region here across the Arrowhead of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin toward the UP of Michigan, with temperatures tumbling back into the middle and upper 60s on your Wednesday. But as we get towards late this week and to kind of close out the work week, getting into this weekend, on Friday, October 7th, yeah, these are high temperatures, upper 40s for much of the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and even parts of the Ohio Valley as well in the lower 50s as we round out the week here on your Friday. And as we go into Friday night here and starting the day on your Saturday, October 8th, these are your low temperatures you'll be waking up to across much of the northern and northeastern United States. Yeah, and these blue shaded colors, that's some upper 20s, if not lower 30s. So some frost conditions and some widespread hard freezes could be possible across much of Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, maybe even as far south as the northern Missouri Valley here, getting down into northern Missouri, central Illinois, and portions there of Indiana and western Ohio as well. So that will be something to monitor as we move a little bit closer in towards late this week and into the upcoming weekend. And with that cold front that drops south with that trough I was showing you, bringing all of those cooler temperatures, we really don't have a lot of moisture ahead of that. So we're not going to see a lot of moisture. All the moisture will be westward here across the Rockies and the southwestern United States. That's where the moisture is here early on this week. Even as we get in towards middle and late portion of this week, Wednesday, Thursday time frame, we got a couple of cold fronts dropping south. That will send the temperatures tumbling. I guess we could see some scattered showers across the upper Great Lakes here as there's a little bit of convergence along this cold front, but not a lot of moisture ahead of that. So I do, looking ahead, I do, see a lot of lower precipitation amounts across these areas. But as we get in towards the late this weekend into early next week, that Arctic high all the way across portions of Canada driving south south towards the Tennessee and Ohio valleys will become parked across the eastern United States during this time, and that is where we could see lots of sunshine, lots of dry air, and again, those clear nights will bring temperatures tumbling back into the upper 20s and lower 30s. So let's kind of look at the climatological date of the first freeze, the first hard freeze of temperatures of 28 degrees or colder, and you can see in the darker shaded greens that's around October 1st through the October 10th time frame here, and then getting into the medium greens here back into Iowa, Nebraska, and the southern and central Wisconsin. That's kind of the middle of October, from October 11th through the 20th time frame. Same thing over there into New England as well. And then once you get into the light greens here and the darker tan colors, that is kind of the end of October toward Halloween and the first full week or so of November. So again, this frost and freeze could come at the cost here of right on time to maybe a week or two ahead of time for some areas as we head across portions of the middle Mississippi Valley and across the Ohio Valley as we get in towards this weekend. So that will be something to watch. And looking at the official forecast here from the Climate Prediction Center for the next 6 to 10 days, starting on October 8th, going through the 12th time frame, right towards the middle of the month, you can see those below normal temperatures are likely across much of the eastern United States, near normal here across the Great Plains region, and then westward here across portions of the Pacific Northwest, down in towards California and the southwest United States. That's where you could expect likely above normal temperatures during that October 8th through the October 12th time frame. Looking at precipitation here during that same time frame, again, a lot of the country is going to be high and dry with a lot of below normal precipitation from the Pacific Northwest all the way eastward toward the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and really much of the eastern United States. The only game in town for precipitation, so to speak, will actually be across the desert Southwest, across Arizona, New Mexico, and maybe West Texas, and getting up toward the Denver area as we get towards that October 8th through that October 12th time frame. And this is also, coming at a cost for an active period across the eastern Pacific. We got a lot going on here. We got Hurricane Orlene across western Mexico there, making landfall later on. We do have a couple of systems here as well. We got an 80% chance of a development of a system here across the open waters of the eastern Pacific Ocean here later on today or in the next couple of days, and then a 30% chance of another system developing just to the south of the Mexico coast, pressing its way to the west-northwest as we head through the next couple of days, so we'll watch that. But what those systems are doing is actually sending lots of moisture farther north across western Mexico, the Baja of California, and really ultimately into the southwestern United States here into the Four Corners region. You can see all the green anomalies showing up here. That is 2 to even up to 3 standard deviations above climatology for precipitable water values across this area. So that is something to watch here as we head into today. As we get toward the middle of the week, we'll start to lose a little bit of moisture here, but it will come back in a big way as we head towards late this weekend here on October 8th and October 9th. That is your Saturday and Sunday time frame. And yeah, you can see a lot of these greens starting to show up across Arizona, Southern California, much of New Mexico, Colorado, and even parts of Utah as well. Again, 2 to maybe 3 standard deviations above climatology for the precipitable water values, which means a lot of heavy rain and monsoonal weather is on the way as we head through the upcoming week. Looking at the precipitation the next several days, going through the next 120 hours, you can see much of the country is going to be very dry across the west, the Pacific Northwest, much of southern and southwestern Canada is going to be very dry with that ridge. We might have our first snow event across portions here of Ontario, getting back into western Quebec. We could have a few inches of snow, definitely not out of the realm of possibility across central Ontario and west central Quebec. We'll get more on that here tomorrow as we fine tune the details. But yeah, a lot of dry weather across the eastern and southeastern United States. That is some good news for the recovery efforts for Florida, but you can see clearly where that monsoonal moisture will be across New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah, and spreading its way up toward the northern plains as we head towards next weekend. So that will be something to keep an eye on. And with that heavy rainfall here, we do have a light green shaded area from the Weather Prediction Center across the southwestern United States. That is a marginal risk of 5% to a 10% chance of some flash flooding in isolated instances across these areas today. That will carry over into much of New Mexico, southeastern Arizona, and southern Colorado for your day tomorrow on your Tuesday. And again, looking at that farther out towards the middle of October, yes, we have above normal precipitation expected across much of the southwestern United States, with a lot of below normal precipitation here maintaining itself across the upper Midwest, especially getting into the eastern United States and back into the Pacific Northwest as well. And that is not good news, because we do have the drought starting to build across the Great Plains again, across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and all the way up here toward Iowa and Nebraska. And that's only going to be spreading eastward with all that drier than normal precipitation. And looking at the current drought monitor that was released on Thursday, September 29th, you can see some areas developing some drought across portions of the eastern United States and the Tennessee Valley, and even back here into central Illinois as well. But looking back to the west, again, some relief from the drought potentially with some of the monsoonal weather into Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah is definitely likely. But again, California, Nevada, back up here towards Oregon, still in that severe to exceptional drought category. So definitely a lot of rain is needed across those areas. And looking at the monthly drought outlook here, going through the rest of October through the Halloween timeframe, you can see that we're going to start to spread that drought a little bit farther to the east across the Mississippi Valley, the lower Mississippi Delta region here into Louisiana, Mississippi, and southern Alabama as well as we get toward the very end of October on October 31st. So that is expected. So again, if you live along the Mississippi River and just slightly to the east there, we might be starting to see a little bit more drought developing as we get through the month of October. Switching tunes here to the active weather across the Atlantic here of recent. We had Hurricane Ian across Florida that caused all that devastation here. My heart goes out to everybody there affected by the storm in the state of Florida. The good news is this is actually weakened in a big way as it pushes up the east coast there, just kind of a nuisance rainmaker. But looking across the satellite imagery on the infrared satellite imagery here this morning, a lot of inactive weather right now. We don't have a lot of waves of tropical weather happening. We got a strong Bermuda high over the central Atlantic Ocean, and we also have the warmer waters still in play across the Caribbean, the southern Atlantic, in those origin spots where we see a lot of those tropical systems originate and then push its way to the west. So that is something to keep an eye on through the month here of October. But it does look like here Hurricane Ian actually did kind of churn up some cooler waters across the west coast of Florida toward the Florida Keys and much of the east coast here, at least the immediate east coast. So that will be something to keep an eye on as well going through October. So let's kind of go over some of the the breakdown of what I expect coming up here for the Atlantic hurricane season. And looking here at the climatological end of the hurricane season looks to be in sight here towards the next couple of months. But before we get there, we still are kind of climbing back down that ladder, and we're still in an active period here in early October. We still can have lots of tropical systems with tropical depressions, tropical storms, and yes, hurricanes, and potentially even major hurricanes. So that will be something to watch. Looking here at October in general, in the green shaded colors across much of the western Caribbean, the Cayman Islands, back through western Cuba, Florida, and then across the Bermuda area into western and central Atlantic. That's where we could see those named storms here most likely climatologically for October. And those hurricanes are still possible across especially the western Caribbean, the southeastern United States, including South Florida there, back towards the open waters of Bermuda there, into the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. So that will be something to keep an eye on through the rest of the month of October. We are seeing a 70% chance of a development of a tropical depression or tropical storm, which, if this is named, would be Julia across portions of the southern and southeastern Atlantic Ocean basin here through the next few days. More of interest is actually a system here that could develop within the next 5 to 7 days. Just across portions there of the southwestern Atlantic, and getting back here towards portions of the eastern Caribbean toward the Windward Islands that has a 40% chance of development. That will be something to watch here through the next several days. And I did kind of go back through and look at the 2022 Atlantic tropical system names here. We've only had 9 named storms here thus far, and actually it's pretty interesting because if you look at this here, the next 2 named storms will be Julia and Carl. But as you look back at the eastern North Pacific, it's been even busier, almost double of what the Atlantic has been. We're up to our 15th named system across the eastern North Pacific Ocean basin, and the next 2 names there would be Payne and Rosalind. So very busy across the eastern Pacific, which is kind of odd because the La Nina conditions really should actually be favoring the Atlantic versus the eastern North Pacific Ocean here in general. So that is very odd, and that looks to continue. We have lots of systems in the eastern Pacific, just a couple systems to watch here in the Atlantic but that looks to continue. We got a strong Bermuda high here across the central Atlantic this afternoon. Midweek, we might have our first tropical depression, tropical storm starting to develop once again. Just west of Africa, really over the open waters. There's no land in sight besides Western Africa as it moves away here into the middle of the week. That could become Julia, and then as we move toward late this week, we'll be watching that system across the Windward Islands, spreading some tropical rains potentially as far north as the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and maybe even places like Puerto Rico as well. Mainly just some light to moderate rainfall. We're not seeing anything that's going to cause a lot of flooding or any major tropical systems, but we'll keep an eye on it as we get towards late this week. Well, thank you guys so much for watching here. If you guys enjoyed it, remember to like the video down below by giving it a thumbs up. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. And guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell down below. Again, lots of great weather content coming up here this week. So if you guys enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell for all of my daily weather forecast updates. Have a great Monday, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.